What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm here to bring you the review of Game of Thrones Season 4, Episode 2, entitled The Lion and the Rose. So, obviously, the big question is, where have you been, Uber Hikari? My response? Obviously not making videos. I've been very busy. Uh, really within the last couple of weeks or whatever, one of my best friends got married. I was a groomsman in his wedding, helped plan the wedding, helped set the wedding up, everything like that. So been really busy. And but more than that, I just didn't feel like it, so I just didn't do it. I mean, I've just been zoned out in terms of making videos lately. So that's what it is. Before you ask, yes, I will be going back to review all of the previous episodes, obviously starting with this review, episode 2. And just so you guys know, before I get into this video, this episode review, at the time I make these videos and I write out all of my notes for the videos, the upcoming videos, I have not watched all of the succeeding episodes. So, if I say something in this episode review that turns out to not be true or correct with respect to all of the subsequent videos, please don't jump on me and try to kill me. Just want to let you know that. My preliminary thoughts on this episode. Holy shit. Could not believe it when I saw it. Just totally blew my mind. So let's get right into it, because there's a lot of shit we gotta speak about. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot we gotta speak about. Starting off with the Theon plot or subplot. What the hell is going on with this Theon storyline? I mean, he's been tortured for an entire season, basically all of season 3, and at this point he's still being tortured. I mean, he's still being tortured. What the hell is going on? What could possibly justify this slowdown in the pacing of the Theon subplot? And it's not just the fact that he's been tortured, but again, it's that it's been dragged out to infinity. His subplot seems to have stagnated on one plot point, which is just him being freaking tortured. Just, it doesn't make sense. And the only thing I can think of that explains this is that there must be something out of continuity with respect to the narrative in the books. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, because the writers have completely screwed up the pacing of the story. It's clear that the Theon subplot has some serious continuity issues with respect to the other subplots in the overall story. And it seems like what the writers are trying to do is to make Theon's torture, which now stretches over an entire season and a couple of episodes, they're trying to make Theon's torture contemporaneous with the other events. But these other events take a whole season to unfold, where it seems like Theon's subplot shouldn't really take that long to unfold. And so you get this weird discontinuity between the Theon subplot and the other plots in the story. And that's the only thing I can think of to explain why the Theon subplot has been dragged out so unnecessarily. But now let's get into what happens to Theon and Roose Bolton and Ramsay and everything that happened in this episode. So Roose Bolton finally makes his way to Winterfell, and apparently he had to smuggle himself in to his own, well, he's the warden of the North now. He had to smuggle himself into his own territory, basically, because Balon is still waging war in the North. But now that he's here, he wants to use Theon as a bargaining chip so that he can acquire Moat Cailin, which is a strategic piece of land, and it has some strategic value with respect to his war with Balon. But he's pretty pissed off when he gets there because he sees what Ramsay has done to Theon, aka Reek, because that's his new name. But here's the kicker. Balon already, apparently, and this is according to Ramsay, and I'm pretty sure that Roose Bolton would have ways of verifying if this was true or not. But according to Ramsay, Balon already refused such a bargain from Ramsay. And of course, my initial thoughts were, is Ramsay telling the truth? And like I said, he must be, because Roose Bolton would have to have ways of verifying this. And so after I thought that through, I thought to myself, wait a minute. Why would Balon Greyjoy basically say, fuck Theon? Because that's what that basically means. That's what it means. Balon was the one who goaded Theon into trying to take Winterfell. He was the one who got him into this folly. This, not even this folly, this boondoggle is basically what it was. Theon is the Greyjoys' only heir to the Iron Islands, except for his sister, who I don't think she's really going to take over the Iron Islands in Balon's stead. I mean, we don't know much about the culture of the Iron Islands up until this point, but I would guess that a female couldn't be heir to the throne of the Iron Islands. Just my sense of it. And so, like I said, Theon is, well, not the only heir, the only viable heir to the Iron Islands. And that's just so fucked up on Balon's part. If you think about it, Balon goaded his son. Well, he didn't even really see him as a son to begin with, but he goaded him into taking Winterfell, and he basically used his son as a diversionary tactic so that he could take Moat Cailin. He set him up, point blank, period, end of story. Set up his own son. That's grimy. That's grimy. In any event, Ramsay assures Roose Bolton that he can use Reek in some way in a plot to capture Moat Cailin and eventually bring ruin to Balon Greyjoy so that this war with the Greyjoys can be over. At this point, Robb's been defeated. Stannis, his army is decimated. Renly's been defeated. Once they get Balon out the way, that's pretty much it. So this is presumably going to be Ramsay's opportunity to prove himself that he really is worthy of his father's affection, and you know how it goes with the bastard son wanting to prove himself to the father. So it seems like shortly, hopefully shortly, we'll get a resolution. We'll finally get a resolution to this Theon subplot, because it's just, like I said, it's just been dragged out too much. Also, I do have a question in relation to Ramsay Snow, and I'm not sure if it's a legitimate question or not, because I haven't read the books, but I'm wondering, who are the Snows? Because there's a Jon Snow, and there's a Ramsay Snow. And I'm just wondering if they're related in any way, or if there is a house, maybe in the past sometime there was a House Snow, and maybe Ramsay and Jon are related to each other or connected to each other in some sort of way through the Snows. Just a question I had. Also, have to talk about Locke, who's the guy who chopped off Jaime's hand and is the underling to Roose Bolton. Got to talk about him for a second. So, upon learning from Theon, aka Reek, that he really didn't kill the Stark boys, Bolton sends Locke on a mission to find them. So, Locke is, at this point, pretty much on Jon Snow's trail at Castle Black. That's where he's presumably heading at this point. But I'm really interested to know why Roose Bolton is sending Locke after the Stark boys. House Stark is gone. It's been decimated. Ned's dead. Rob's dead. Caitlyn is dead. Sansa has been captured. Arya is presumed dead. Why are they going after the Stark boys? And and Bran is crippled. He's done. So what's the point of going after the Stark boys anyway? It can't be to take them hostage or use them in some sort of bargaining. Because, like I said, House Stark is already gone. So is the plan just to kill them off so that they don't somehow seek revenge against them? What's the deal? Not really understanding why Roose Bolton would send Locke after the Stark boys when the Starks are already completely wiped out. Little confused about that. Also, now that I've mentioned the Stark boys, got to talk about Bran and his vision. So who is calling Bran to the north? That's the obvious question. And where exactly in the north is he going? Because if he keeps going towards the north, the only thing that's there, well, there's two things that are there. Mance Rayder and the White Walkers. So I'm just a little curious about who's calling him to the north and where exactly he's going in the north. Also, the vision of the Iron Throne being empty with the falling snow that's chilling everything. Really curious about that as well. As we all know, the Iron Throne is in King's Landing, which is generally depicted as having warm weather. So what does the snow symbolize that's falling on King's Landing? The only thing I could think of is that winter is coming, but the Iron Throne will be empty when winter gets there. It could signify the destruction of the Iron Throne and therefore symbolize the destruction of Westeros at large, since the Iron Throne is the symbol of political and military authority and power in Westeros, so it could symbolize that. But it's just very interesting to think about that vision. And it could even be maybe instead of a symbolic vision, it could be a literal precognition where he sees an empty Iron Throne in the winter in King's Landing. And I don't think it has anything to do with Joffrey's death. I just don't think that. Because it would seem, I don't know, it seems weird to have that sort of symbol of an empty Iron Throne in an episode where Joffrey dies. Those two things don't seem to be connected. Joffrey's death would be too quick after the premonition. So I'm just thinking that at some point in the future, especially since the snow is falling on the Iron Throne, and I think that symbolizes winter. So I don't think it has anything to do with Joffrey's death in this episode. Also, we see a dragon flying over King's Landing. Obviously, that symbolizes that Daenerys is on her way there. So she's apparently, if the division is anything to go by, she will make her way to Westeros at some point in the future. And maybe she even has something to do with the Iron Throne being empty in Bran's vision. At this point, kind of difficult to tell. Now, let me talk about Tyrion and Jaime. When you think about it, there really hasn't been much of a relationship between the brothers. So I was somewhat surprised when Tyrion decided to help Jaime by setting him up with Bronn. And honestly, I think Tyrion just feels sorry for Jaime. I mean, he realizes the predicament that he's in. He realizes that he hates his father as much as he does, and that the only way that he could prove himself or be his own man was through being in the Kingsguard, and now that's not possible because his hand is lost. So I think, all in all, Tyrion just, I don't want to say pity. I'm not sure if I would go as far as to say pity. maybe it is pity, but I think I'm at least justified in saying that he just feels sorry for him. So he wants to help Jaime restore himself by setting him up with Bran. And it looks like Jaime's gonna, well, you never know with Game of Thrones. It looks like Jaime is gonna learn to use a sword with his left hand. But like I said, you can never be sure of stuff like this. Who knows what's gonna happen to Jaime in the future. Also, I know there were some people, even some reviewers, who felt that by losing his sword hand, this would precipitate some character transformation in Jaime, some kind of character growth or a positive character transformation in Jaime. But maybe not. I mean, how would, at this point in his life, how would Jaime redefine his identity by not relying on what he was given by his father? He doesn't want to inherit anything that do with the Lannister legacy. That's clear. He doesn't want Casterly Rock. And if he doesn't want that, and if the only thing he's ever known is sword fighting and being in the King's Guard, then it makes complete sense that he would revert back to what he knows. That just makes perfect sense to me. And it seems like after his promising relationship with Brienne, that he might simply regress to the mean, as we say in statistics. He'll just simply regress back to what he was before he met Brienne. Or that he might take on a deeper level of characterization through some sort of cognitive dissonance. And I say that because at this point it's clear that the introduction of Brienne as a character into Jaime's life has really psychologically and morally fractured Jaime. He's done some pretty horrible things. But he really does, on the other hand, he really does seem to be capable of doing good, as evidenced by the fact that he saved Brienne from being gang raped. And I think being around Brienne makes him want to do good, but I'm just not sure if him wanting to do good will lead to the type of character transformation that a lot of people thought it would. And that this would just leave him in a perpetual position of cognitive dissonance, where on one hand, all he's ever known in his life is violence and more violence, especially by being in the King's Guard, and especially by being known as the Kingslayer, and that part of him will always have to fight with the part of him that wants to be good and that wants to respond to Brienne's attempts to make him a better person. And so what you get, rather than just straight up character transformation, is just like I said, it's just a deeper level of characterization of Jaime through cognitive dissonance. And I like that, honestly. I think it would go well with the moral fabric already established in Game of Thrones, which is that there are no heroes. There are no good guys. They're just morally ambiguous characters depicted in a morally realistic way. So I think that fits perfectly with the story. Now, got to talk about Stannis. It's clear that Stannis has gone off the deep end. Like, completely off the deep end. He's burning people at the stake. People who were loyal to him are now being cast as infidels, being burned at the stake. He's now allowed Melisandre to manipulate him, take over a vast amount of authority, and identify people as infidels and kill them for this Lord of Light bullshit. And I do think it's bullshit. I must say that this Lord of Light stuff, and again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know for certain, but I don't believe this Lord of Light bullshit for a second. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe that the Lord of Light really exists because I don't think that there are deities. I don't think that there are gods in the Game of Thrones. And this seems to me to be some cult like shit or some occult like magical stuff, if anything else. And I think it's just a case of the preternatural pretending to be supernatural. And by preternatural, I think it's just magic in the sense that it's beyond nature. But it's not beyond nature in the sense of being divine. So I think that there's a play on the difference here between preternatural versus supernatural. I don't think there are gods in the Game of Thrones. And this preternatural stuff that's going on with Melisandre and her magic is just another way that humans in the Game of Thrones world use weapons, in this case magic, as a weapon of war. That's what I believe. I think that Melisandre is using magic to manipulate Stannis. I don't believe in this Lord of Light bullshit. Now let's talk about Joffrey and his death. Wow. First, I already had Joffrey's death spoiled for me, so I knew he was gonna die. And yeah, this is what I get for going through like Game of Thrones forums and wikis and stuff. Like I said, I've known about this series for 7 years, so I've know a lot about it, even if I haven't read the books or previously watched the TV show. So I had this spoiled for me already. But I thought the time, the circumstances, and the manner of his death would all be completely different. And like I said, I haven't read the books, so that could be the case. It could be the case that his death in the TV show was completely different from his death in the books. But at the time that I was spoiled, I just thought, and there was really no reason for me to think this, but I thought that the timing, the circumstances, and the manner of his death would be completely different. And so even though I already had his death spoiled for me, I was completely shocked to see him die in the second episode of this season. I mean, I could not believe it. I'm still stunned. I just could not believe that this dude is dead already. That he's just freaking dead already. Crazy. Killed off in the second episode of the season, and it was regicide and not an act of war, and he's poisoned rather than being killed, like on the battlefield or something like that, or by one of his enemies. Totally unexpected. I mean, just down the line, all those things completely unexpected by me. But I think I speak for everybody when I say I'm glad the little shit is dead. I think everybody can agree with that. Westeros is much better off without him. Just completely glad that he's dead. But I have to ask myself this question as a reviewer. As a viewer, I'm glad that he's dead. But as a reviewer, I have to ask this question. What is the narrative purpose of Joffrey's death? I mean, is he just killed off simply because he can be killed off and this is supposed to be realistic? It's supposed to have some element of realism to it? Or does his death serve a deeper plot point? Is there a deeper point to his death? And I'm just questioning what the narrative purpose of his death is. Because originally I thought that Joffrey's death would bring about the end to the War of Five Kings. I thought that Stannis would be the one to kill Joffrey. That's just what I thought. Or maybe Balon, or that there would be some way that Joffrey's death would signal the end of the War of Five Kings. But Balon and Stannis are still fighting. Hell, Stannis is still fighting even though he really doesn't have an army anymore. And Balon is making inroads simply by the fact that he's taken Moat Cailin. So again, how does Joffrey's death advance the plot in any significant way? That still remains to be seen for me. I'm just not seeing how this will pan out. Just not sure how it would pan out. And it wasn't like Joffrey was just some inconsequential character with an inconsequential narrative role. He was the king of Westeros. He sat on the Iron Throne. It was his actions by executing Ned Stark that precipitated the War of Five Kings. And now he's killed off like that. Just gone. With really no way to see what the narrative impact of his death will be. And the only thing I can think of that narratively explains Joffrey's death, is that his death symbolizes that Westeros is now entering a period, if it wasn't apparent in the War of Five Kings, that now it's really entering a stage of that Westeros is now entering a stage of complete and utter collapse. I mean, because starting with Jon Arryn's death, all the way at the beginning, this has just been a freaking political fiasco. A military and political fiasco for Westeros. Other thoughts about this episode. Brienne now clearly knows that the rumors of the incestuous relationship between Cersei and Jaime are true. She must know that now, because Cersei got on her, started interrogating her, threatening her, questioning her about her relationship to Jaime, and you could literally see the realization creep across Brienne's face, like, and then she turns to Jaime like, okay. That's what it is. Huh. And she tried to play it off, but you could tell she really knew at that point. Also, Oberyn has just come in straight up G-checking niggas. I mean, that's the only way to put it. He's just come straight in G-checking niggas. Obviously, he really hates Tywin for the death of Elia and the infant, her infant, I think it was a son, infant son. And this dude is just not afraid to let him know it. And I must say this, I don't think that Oberyn is the type of guy to hurt a child for revenge, because remember, Marcella is in Dorne at this point. But I'll be damned if it didn't sound like a threat when he told Cersei something to the effect of, what did he say? In some places, the highborn look down on the lowborn, and in some places, they find the rape and murder of children distasteful. You should be happy that Dorne is the latter such place. Like, what the fuck? Is that a threat? And then the look on Cersei's face was like, you threatening me? Yikes. Yeah. I think, like I said, I'm not sure if Oprah is the type of guy who would hurt a child for revenge, but this is the Game of Thrones. I wouldn't put it past him. So, this was obviously a great, juicy, action-packed episode. And I can't wait to review the next episodes of the Game of Thrones. So this was your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.